Now here, the long-awaited plan to transform England's food system was published this morning, with the government promising to put farmers and food security at the heart of its reforms. The Prime Minister denied criticism that the plan fails to tackle obesity by leaving out a recommended tax on sugar and salt, saying the best way to lose weight was to eat less. Our rural affairs correspondent Claire Marshall takes a look at what else is in this white paper.
Courgette City.
Hello. The Prime Minister was on a courgette farm near Hale in Cornwall for the media this morning for the launch of the government's national food strategy. It's the plan for how our food gets from the fields to our forks. At its heart, the government says, are the farmers.
You've got to make sure that you do is that you look after UK food and farming and recognise that we have an opportunity to eat much more of what we grow in this country.
In the white paper is a framework for farming the land sustainably, trying to take care of nature and tackle climate change. More locally grown or higher standard food. There'll be a consultation on whether this is where the public sector, hospitals, schools and care homes should be spending its food budget. There'll be a review of the labour shortage, including using more machines and issuing more visas for migrants. This is an organic farm near Swindon. These pigs currently provide high-quality meat for national supermarkets. But could they soon go into meals for local schools? These pigs have been bred and reared outdoors, and they're given minimal amounts of antibiotics. Until now, this style of organic farming has been seen as more niche. But if today's strategy document is to be believed, then they could move more into the mainstream. But there is not enough detail, according to the man who led a major review into our food system.
I think it's progress, particularly on the environment. There are some really important policies. It's a list of policies, not a strategy, though, and it needs to be bolder on the environment. And on health, we're waiting. It's been kicked down the line. We're waiting for what the Health Secretary says on health.
Some wildlife groups are saying that the government has broken its promise to restore nature and help biodiversity. But after withering criticism of an earlier leaked draft, the National Farmers Union is now behind the plans.
I think it's really welcome to see government committing to food production and food security. There's a strong commitment in there to maintain our current levels of self-sufficiency and to produce more effectively of what we're good at.
However, Britain is in the grip of an obesity crisis, and many campaigners are asking what happened to the proposed sugar and salt tax. According to the government, these will be addressed in another white paper at a later date. Claire Marshall, BBC News, Wiltshire.
Let's talk now to Stephanie Slater. Stephanie is founder and chief executive of School Food Matters, a charity working in schools to help teach children about food and to improve children's access to healthy and sustainable food. Stephanie, thank you very much for being with us on BBC News this afternoon. From what you've seen of what's been announced so far, what do you make of it?
Well, it's interesting because on the positive, we had some initiatives introduced in the Levelling Up White Paper, which came out in February, which focused on schools and compliance with the school food standards, monitoring, and some slightly firmer language has come out in the National Food, in the White Paper today, making it a requirement for schools to report on how they're providing food to children at schools. But for me, the biggest omission in this White Paper today is addressing the fact that so many children are missing out on a free school meal. We had new data last week showing that a third of children who are identified of living in poverty don't qualify for a free school meal. So in the middle of a cost of living crisis, I'm kind of wondering why this hasn't been addressed right now.
So just to be clear about that, you're saying that they are, in all the official definitions, living in poverty, but they're ineligible. Are you clear why they're ineligible? What is it that's keeping them just outside the criteria that would automatically mean they got a free school meal?
So the threshold to qualify for a free school meal is £7,400 earned household income. That's before benefits, but that's earned household income. That is set far too low. And there's an anomaly because in England it's very different from other places in the UK. We know that Scotland and Wales are looking at universal provision for primary school children. And it's really interesting because only this morning I was in a school and the head teacher knows that 35% of the children in the school are eligible for benefits related free school meals, but he estimates another 15% of the children in his school need a free school meal and their parents are struggling to pay for a school lunch. And what happens when parents struggle to pay is they tend to send in a packed lunch. And we know that all our research tells us that only 1% of packed lunches meet the school food standards. So we want every child in every school to get the good nutrition they need to thrive. And so many children are missing out. And we really hoped that we'd see something in the white paper today to address that.
And I heard from one head teacher who was talking to us on BBC News a couple of weeks ago, saying that in a lot of schools, as he understands, and certainly it applies in his school, and I wonder what you're hearing about this, effectively children are kind of racking up debt because, on behalf of their family, because the head teachers and the cooks who don't want the kids to go without the food, so they're serving them a school meal and saying, well, it'll have to be paid for at some future date. And presumably that isn't a sustainable position for schools in terms of their finances.
And what a terrible thing to do with their families. I mean, this is an extraordinary thing for a head teacher to have a conversation with a family about dinner money debt. It stigmatises families. It also really damages the financial viability of the school food service. We need more children having a hot school meal. We know that if parents are turned to packed lunches, which is poor in nutrition, it's very damaging to the catering service who are trying to recover from low numbers during COVID. So the best thing we can do for children and for our school meal service is to get more children eating a hot school meal.
Can I ask you, one of the other things you do as a charity, School Food Matters, is provide, as you put it, fully funded food education programmes to schools. Have you seen demand for that increasing, or is it about the same where it was?
Well, absolutely. So we know that since 2014, cooking has been back on the curriculum. That came out of Henry Dimbleby's school food plan, and we absolutely applauded that. But we know that delivery is really patchy. So as a charity, we can offer a really interesting framework for schools to deliver food education. That could be growing food or teaching children how to cook. Now, we can't be everywhere. We do an enormous amount of work across the country, but we can't be in 28,000 schools. So we want policy to change so that there's more help for teachers to deliver quality food education. And that's right from reception all the way through to the sixth form. And the A-level has been removed, which is a remarkable thing because lots of children are interested in careers in food and they don't have an effective pathway post year 11. So one of the calls in the National Food Strategy with Henry Dimbleby was to reinstate that A-level. So we know there are lots of creative and fabulous careers in food, and we want children to be able to understand that a little better and take their learning further.
Stephanie Slater of the School Food Matters campaign. Thank you very much. Good to speak to you again.
Thank you.